Tramonti is a lovely site made up of 13 villages spread over a wide valley that is surrounded by imposing green mountains. It is dominated at its center by the hill of Santa Maria. At its top, ruins of an ancient castle border the current cemetery. Today, all villages are connected by an efficient road system, and life in them is made pleasant by the availability of all modern comforts. The center of each village still is a church, where the women gather to recite the rosary and sing the glories of the Lord. Corsano is one of those villages. Antonio was born there 100 years ago, and his birthplace house still exists, although abundantly modified. Back then, life in Tramonti was difficult. Only a few villages were reached by a road that climbed the valley from Maiori. All others were connected by rugged trails constantly rising or descending. There was neither running water nor, obviously, electricity. Corsano was one of the most isolated villages. Life revolved around the old church that had to be demolished about 20 years ago due to the extensive damage caused by the 1980 earthquake. The 5th of April, San Vincenzo's Day, was the most awaited time of the year, when the statues of the Saint and the Holy Mary were taken on shoulders in procession. Farm animals changed owner and street vendors stimulated the local youth imagination, displaying their merchandise. A musical band, possibly of good repute, elevated the spirit with arias from Verdi and Rossini's operas. Antonio's preferred place, however, was Figlino, where the Bove, Rachele's family of origin, lived. Antonio enjoyed the love of those uncles and aunties, and their cordiality and generous behavior. In this context, amongst so many physical and environmental difficulties, Antonio spent his infancy and early boyhood. He left the village to continue his education and subsequently his career and existence, but went back every time the circumstances allowed. High on a wedge at the confluence of the rivers Stura and Gesso rises the city of Cuneo, a city fortress whose ponderous bastions defeated several attempts of conquest for many centuries. The ancient, massive covered sidewalks are typical of places that have been frequently under siege and bombarded, and have had to provide protection for the inhabitants to carry on living in relative safety. Cuneo is a small city still today. It was even smaller, with fewer than 40,000 people when Gemma was born in the year 1911 at Civic number 7 of Corso Nizza. She was christened the 22nd of July, 4 days after her birth, in the near church of Sacro Cuore, by the priest Dalmazio Peano, still today remembered for his efficient administration. Gemma loved her birth town, even if it was too confined for her. The Tuesday open market, the grace of Via Roma in Piazza Galimberti, and the glory of Cuneesial room, of the elegant coffee shop Arione, were not sufficient to satisfy her vivacious spirit. It was at Santa Maria Rocca, a small village not far from Cuneo, where young Gemma was happy and enjoyed spending part of her summers. She liked the large country house, the vast expanses, and above all the presence of grandparents, uncles, aunties, and cousins. Her relationship with Auntie Matilde was particularly close, and such it remained throughout her life. Gemma, of course, followed her father in his frequent moves demanded by his activity as army officer. She therefore grew up in several cities in Italy: Genova, Bari, Bologna. In the art academies of some of these cities, she continued and concluded her education. Every summer she spent with mother and friends a few weeks at the beach and the mountain, both places that she loved intensely. It was during one of those vacations to the coastal town of Cervia in the year 1937 that she met Antonio, then a young army captain. The following year, on the 20th of April 1938, they got married in Bologna. The religious ceremony was held in the church of San Martino on Via Oberdan. The reception took place at the large apartment adjacent to the officers' mess in Via Marsala, where Colonel Cesare Bonelli, military commissariat director, and family had been residing. After the wedding, she briefly lived in Naples. Then, from 1940 to the end of the war, she lived in the Trento region. And finally, from 1945 till 1948, the year she died, she lived in Tramonti. She never returned neither to Cuneo nor Santa Maria Rocca.